Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's second front load and another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We're going through that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we do the usual disclaimers, this is coming to you for a mini break after I finished up the kitchen. Next is the living room, which is going to be a far larger chore before we can get the third video out. Send help! Because, yeah, I've waited way too long since the last time I cleaned. To the disclaimers, right? In the description box, you're going to find a link to the article that the Judge Rotenberg Educational Center doesn't want you to read. It's written by NeuroClastic, a small non-for-profit started by autistics for autistics, wherein they interviewed and surveyed over 900 ABA professionals regards to the JRC's so-called behavior modification program. Matter of fact, the JRC doesn't want you to read this article so much, they've threatened NeuroClastic with a defamation lawsuit if they did not remove it from the website. Well, folks, NeuroClastic has refused, so you know the drill. Please read the article and share it on all your social media. Also included in there is NeuroClastic's public statement regards to the defamation lawsuit threat, as well as a link to their GoFundMe. We are crowdfunding, folks, in case the JRC actually sees through with their threat. Also included in there, the Ozarks first article in regards to the Agape boarding school, now known as Stone for Help boarding school situation, a so-called Christian-themed boarding school based out of Stockton, Missouri that takes in so-called troubled male teens, that has impending over 21 civil lawsuits, claims, and allegations leveled against it, all which have been substantiated by the Missouri Department of Social Services, and they include the following: sodomy, rape, sexual assault, child abuse, psychological and emotional abuse, child trafficking, starvation, and that's just for starters. You have one former staff member arrested by the FBI, another a doctor still on the premises with full access to the boys, up on multiple substantiated claims of sodomy, rape, and sexual assault of the boys there. You have an attorney general too busy chasing after drag queens to actually do his job, and you've got a governor who's a special level of nut bar, so please send help to the few remaining ones left in this godforsaken state that have two brain cells to rub together and don't have enough money to flee. Read that article, share it on all your social media. Also included in there, as always, the link to this particular analysis of the JRC done by Dr. Fredda back in 1999, Hoya's massive archive on the subject, Jennifer Masumba's behavioral sheet of shockable offenses, a clip out of the 7-hour ordeal undergone by Andre McCollins back in 2002, and the ever-present self-explanatory change.org Shut the Judge Rotenberg Center Down petition. When we discuss the JRC, folks, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, folks, please go ahead, use those headphones, all right? Trigger warning, this channel is marked not for children for a reason. We use profanity on occasion and speak on dark subjects. If your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very obviously parental supervision is very much advised, all right? Okay, so where we left off last vid. Individualized. Oh my God, you're singing my song, woman. You are singing my song. I love this song. Individualized. Neither the educational nor behavioral programs is individualized for X. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The JRC doesn't know the meaning of the word individualized. An individualized program is brought together using the results of an actual full functional assessment. Not just focusing on, allergies. Thank you. Not just focusing on the behaviors. God. Thank you, JRC. Every time I hear the word behavior, I twitch. Thanks. Thanks a lot. An actual individualized program is based off of the results of an actual full functional assessment. That's the baseline. You can't go anywhere if you do not have a fully fleshed out baseline. Plans and programs, when created correctly, you work off of that. So the goals are not just about, well, I gotta make sure they don't have a behavior because then they'll make me embarrassed amongst the other normies. Okay? Doesn't help anyone. You're missing the forest for the trees. Okay? A real functional assessment, when done properly, is individualized because of the results. Because if you got two brain cells to rub together, you are able to realize and understand the concept that just like neurotypicals, not anyone with any particular diagnosis is the same. The concept of giving everyone the same treatment, in spite of the fact that we know in this modern world that disability affects each individual differently from the way it might affect someone else. Let me give you an example. A good majority of my friends are neurodivergent and otherwise disabled. We all have sensory issues, but our sensory issues aren't the same. I can do a full video with noise in the background, like I could have my TV on Pandora playing my music while doing this video. I can actually be reading while having that background noise. In fact, with my sensory issues, it is preferable that there be some form of background noise. There kind of has to be. There are others, also autistic, who are unable to do that. They can't have the background noise going on while trying to focus on what's in the screen in front of them or watching like one of these videos, for example, because whatever noise is in the background makes it impossible for them to focus on what it is the individual in the video is saying. What does this teach us? You can't cookie cutter treatment, okay? But let's move forward here. While admittedly there is some level of individualization within a goal strategy, which step of the computer matching shapes program, which level 3 Aversives to use, that's not individualization. When you got a whole team there whose whole goal in life is to find out what particularly makes you tick so that you can torture you for it, that's not an individualized program, that's individualized torture. There's kind of a massive difference between the two. There appears to be no individualization in the selection of goals and strategies themselves. Again, this is what I mean by cookie cutter, that people like Dr. Matthew Israel and the dinosaurs that were waiting to die are still toting, is that no, that we got to use these specific strategies to deal with your behaviors because this is what works. No, it doesn't, Karen. Everybody's an individual, which means no one strategy is going to work on every single person. This is basic logic here. Even individuals who've never worked this field can wrap their brains around that, right? In other words, the treatment procedures and behavioral strategies identified for X are the same treatments identified for most other students. My point. Consequently, one can assume that functional behavioral assessments, to whatever degree that they were conducted, do not inform the program development as dictated in the IDEA and in the guidelines designated by the New York State Department of Education. Nope. No, they do not, Fredda. They absolutely do not. They are stuck so far in the past that they have this idea that overall strategies to target the behaviors that one size fits all. It's beyond stupidity. What's more fun, folks, is I've been dealing with, I call them the dinosaurs, since I was working for the state, because there were a lot more left around back then than there is now. And if you want to talk about butting heads, you want to talk about how many times I was in the director's office. By the way, I have no filter and it's shutting me up. That's the trick. So thankfully, I managed to somehow be able to communicate why what they were trying to say against me was stupid and did not match what was going on in the field at the time, that I didn't manage to get myself fired. Thankfully. I developed the talent of saving face. There was a lot of explicitives going on inside my head, though. Just so you know. The use of the functional behavioral assessment results in a uniquely designed behavioral and education program. So they're not taking their results for the full functional assessment and actually applying it in order to create a program that is based on the individual that is being assessed. They use cookie cutter treatments and strategies. And when those don't work, instead of thinking like an adult, maybe there might be something to individualizing this a little bit more, and I need to get a full functional assessment done, they instead say, okay, the strategies aren't working, so therefore torture is the only answer. That's the JRC, folks. Oh, but they're not no means alone. Again, the dinosaurs, and I hate to be this callous, the ones that we are just waiting to die, are the same individuals that have been pushing the same outdated and just ignorant things that they've been pushing since the 50s and 60s. All the same strategies that have caused generation after generation after generation of autistics and other neurodivergent folks and people with developmental disabilities trauma, all the way up to the current generation, Gen Z, right now. Okay? That's why we call them dinosaurs. That's why we're waiting for them to die, because they have produced generation and generation after generation of traumatized, neurodevelopmentally disabled adults. Trauma, because they cannot get themselves out of their own rigid thinking to be able to actually get some real quality progressive work done. I find this ironic because one of the things that people say about autistics so much is our very rigid form of thinking and how much we refuse to compromise. It's used as one of those things that they use to kind of complain and demonize us. What I find interesting is from those old dinosaurs that are still around, still toting the cookie cutter freaking idiocy, is that they are very much fitting the exact description in this particular area that they foist onto us. Gotta love projection, right? We're going to close out on that. No, actually, we're going to get into more of this. But why do they call us rigid without being able to see themselves in the mirror? The idea concept that we're rigid, I got a twofold thing on that. First of all, I refuse to compromise for anyone. I am who I am. Who I am does not deviate. It does not change. My values might as well be written somewhere in concrete. They do not change based on the individual, even if I despise the individual with my whole soul. I guess you could call that rigid. Okay. But when you think rigid, when they're talking about us, you're not thinking about that, are you? They cite our resistance to change, right? But if you look at the neurodiverse community, you see what we champion, you see what we stand for, you see who we back. We more often than not are on the front lines of social change. I want you to get this to sink in because we are usually always on the front lines for social change. Right now, because of this fact, we are being demonized by the conservatives who are trying to tell us, oh, we're confused. We're being targeted victims. We don't know what we're fighting for. The list goes on. While they're also doing that, they're finding a means to punish us for daring to speak up for trans people, for drag queens, for LGBTQ, by slowly, almost beneath the radar, taking away our rights, one little small chink at a time. Now, let's take a look at that from some of these dinosaurs' perspectives. Because our resistance to change has to do with our own moral values, our sense of right and wrong, our sense of justice, and for God's sake, our sense of logic and intelligence. I don't really think that's rigid. But the dinosaurs who claim that and claim it as a detriment, hanging over our heads like the ghost of Christmas past, like the sword of Damocles, if you will, holding on to what remains of the very unethical and unjust treatment programs of the past with a death grip, are far more rigid than any autistic or any other neurodevelopmental person that you will come across. They refuse, no matter what new evidence is out there, no matter what data we can put in front of them. It's kind of like dealing with an stan or an anti-vaxxer. You can pull out proof, top of proof, top of proof, top of proof. But they're going to insist that everyone is wrong but them. And that these strategies are tried and true, and my favorite, the gold standard. Might have been a gold standard a long time ago. So were lobotomies. Doesn't it make it ethical? Doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it progressive or actually effective. That's rigidity. Being rigid is not allowing yourself to have a change of mind and adjust treatment programs accordingly as the new science and data comes out. That's rigid. We're going to close out on that, folks. We don't get very many views on this channel. The few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time. As always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. I will come back once I'm done with the first part of the 5-part of cleaning this living room. Goodbye, everyone.